I can't quite see you, but I think you are there. Hi.
Hello.
Hello, how are you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm just going to get us settled here.
Yeah, sounds great.
So, how are you? How has it been going?
It's been going great. It's been a good start to the semester. I got to
Nice.
go skiing over the weekend, so that was really fun.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
Good,
How
good,
about
good.
you?
Oh, it's been busy.
Yeah,
I have a few different projects going on right now. So it's,
gotcha.
yeah, and graduate school. So it's a lot, but yeah,
Yeah,
hanging
definitely.
in
The
there.
work. That's good.
Good. So what can I help you with, or what questions did you have? Let me see if I can adjust
Yeah.
the viewing angle here. Maybe this will,
Okay,
there
sounds
we go.
good.
I like that better. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pause it and then start it up again because this is kind of, all right, here we are again. All right. So can you tell me a little bit about your major or what you're working in again?
Yeah, so I'm currently a psychology major, and what I want to get out of that is to become a therapist and to help people be able to dive deeper into themselves and being able to help pull them out of that, like a sane person again, because it's kind of hard to go deep within yourself and figure out the things you need to rewire and redo.
Yeah.
And then I'm also getting a minor in integrative health
Okay.
because I feel like that's something perfect that can kind of complement that psychology major, but also complement my life in a really beautiful way.
Yeah, yeah. Are you
Yeah.
finding other people in your psych major doing that as well, or other people in the minor integrative health community? Are you finding
Yeah.
people doing other majors with bringing in the minor integrative health?
Yeah, I would say haven't seen anything as of now. I just took my first class for that minor, which is a class on racism and health disparities, which is super
Okay.
interesting. It is online though, so it's harder to kind of like connect with people.
Okay.
But next semester, I'm planning on taking like the intro to integrative health class.
Okay.
So hopefully, I'll be able to meet some more like-minded people and be able to connect a little bit more. But I definitely don't doubt it. I think there's so many people, especially my age, that are so interested in wellness in all aspects,
Mhm.
not just, the medical field and everything that has to do that with that, because of course that's so big here, but I feel like there's an offshoot of people that are really into integrative health.
Okay.
So it'll
Okay.
definitely be a great community to connect to.
Good, good. So
Yeah.
when I, as you know, and my audience knows,
Hmm.
I teach a bit at UVM in the rec department with yoga and with the
Yeah.
department sometimes and helping out there. Um,
Hmm.
although my interests have kind of moved a bit, still in healthcare, but just different offshoots of that,
Yeah,
going deeper in different angles.
definitely.
We had talked a little bit after one of my classes, and you were interested in talking more with me. Did you have
Yeah.
any questions or thinking that came about?
Yeah, I was just wondering, what's your journey with integrative health? How did you get started in this field?
Oh, geez. Well, back in the day, there used to be, if I'm remembering correctly, allopathic medicine, which is what we think of
Hmm.
as westernized medicine. And then everything else was complementary alternative medicine. So I don't believe integrative health at that point was being utilized. That's just my experience
Yeah.
at New York University in the mid 90s. Or I guess I
Mhm.
started there in 1992, but I graduated
Yeah.
closer to it took me a few years more longer because I took some
Yeah,
time.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I would say I knew growing up that the performing arts was really important to me, and dancing for my health,
Yeah.
at a professional level,
Hmm.
and taking lots of dance classes or creating art in some way, either visual or performing. But I loved performing and movement. And that really helped a lot. I later, and I'm very honest in my books and when I talk with people, um,
Yeah.
coming from a lot of abuse growing up. And so home
Mm.
was not a safe feeling place. So having an
Yeah.
outlet and feeling supported, whether in education or in the performing arts, was really valuable to me. And then also, so having those, what are, I'm sure know are ACEs, adverse childhood events, leading to trauma or PTSD or complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And then
Yeah.
later on, understanding I'm autistic, so, or Asperger's,
Mm-hmm.
autism level 1,
Gotcha.
I'm extremely lucky I found a passion that spoke to me. Well, I started at
Yeah.
the age of 3, to be honest with you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was trying to understand about reality. And so
Mm-hmm.
starting at the age of 3 years old, any TV show, media, comments I heard, such as the Twilight Zone or Quantum Leap,
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
was really curious and investigative coming from a family of educators, doctors, nurses, people in psychiatry, also healthcare administrators. So I grew up
Yeah.
in a very curious setting with people who are very curious professionally,
Yeah,
in
definitely.
labs, hospitals, felt very comfortable to me. Science felt very comfortable to me, and the performing arts.
Mm-hmm.
So in that landscape, when I got to NYU, and I was 18 or just had turned 18, about a few months into it, I started to develop severe back pain. And I come from, family where everyone had back pain. And
Gotcha.
I was like, they were like, oh, you got like the curse, whatever. And I was like, no, I've been dancing my whole life. I'm 18. Like, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And so imaging was saying, degenerative disc disease. And I was put on different medication and none of it helped.
Wow.
And I was just like, something doesn't add up to me here. Something doesn't seem right. And so spring break
Yeah.
of April, I guess that would be 1992, I was back up in Hanover, New Hampshire, and I was at the Dartmouth bookstore, which is no longer, but at that time it was on Main Street there. And this book just sort of glowed, and it was called Healing Back Pain by Dr. Johnny Sarno. And I looked at the back and
Mm.
I read it, and I realized that he was the director of the Rusk Institute at NYU. And I was like, huh,
Wow.
I'm at NYU. And this book makes a lot of sense. And so I
Wow.
took it home and I read the book and I applied the methodology in it. And I was out of
Mm-hmm.
pain in about 2 weeks.
That's
And so
amazing.
so I still followed up
Yeah.
with Dr. Sarno, talked with on the phone. He said, met with him, you're doing great. Just keep following. If you start to have any issues, come in and see me. I said, okay. And so the basic idea behind Dr. Sarno's work, he had been, I think, 30 years as the director there. So he'd been seeing a lot of patients
Mm-hmm.
coming in with severe back pain imaging. And what he was observing was that finally he realized that, he could take x-rays or MRIs of people on the street, and a lot of them would have stenosis, slip discs, all these issues, but they have no pain. So what's actually causing
Wow.
pain? What's
Yeah.
actually at the root of this pain? And so it was a medical way of really opening up a deeper issue of what's going on. And so
Yeah.
so to put it this way, if you have um, a mom with a newborn baby and she loves her
Mm-hmm.
baby with her whole heart, her whole self, but with that baby crying at 1 a.m. and keeping her up, and she has work in the morning, and a part of her hates the baby, wants to kill the baby, which the baby never existed. And so the brain is an aware organ, makes the decision and says, I, subconscious, unconscious, it is better we create a distraction than let myself, the host, the body, the being,
Yeah.
feel this level of anger and pain and anger at the baby. Like, it's just something that will not work. And
Yeah.
so there's a slight oxygen deprivation sent to a particular part of the body. Sarno saw that it mostly happened in the trunk, around the lower back, sometimes down a leg, sometimes in the neck. And the idea of how he worked was, you're like the Wizard of Oz, you're pulling back the curtain of what's actually happening. He said a small
Wow.
portion of people might have to do deeper psychotherapy, those who have had sexual abuse trauma issues as a child and
Yeah.
such. But for most humans, if they pull back that technique and tell the brain to knock it off, the brain will knock it off. And then they're no longer in pain. So, for example, there were
Wow.
in New York City, there's higher profile clients such as Howard Stern. That's the one that comes to mind because he's been very vocal about
Mm-hmm.
treatment with Dr. Simon.
Yeah.
But there's been others. And so what I really liked about was that this was not a situation of saying, oh, stress is causing this. That didn't work. You couldn't say,
Yeah.
let's supply more oxygen to that area. That didn't work. It was about stopping the mechanism in the brain from continuing its distracting tool and saying, I see what you're doing, knock it off. I'd rather have the feeling. I'd rather have the awareness and the consciousness than have the pain. I'd rather have the feeling than the pain. And so some people would need to go deeper to really uncover what their attention myositis syndrome was about, TMS, or some people, would be fine and just follow that and would
Yeah.
never have an attack again. And sometimes he would have people who were fine and then would have an attack of TMS, and he'd talk with them and they do their program and then they'd be fine. And he's not ruling out that someone might have cancer or might have a heart attack. His whole book is saying you have to be screened very carefully by a medical doctor, not a naturopathic doctor, not a DO, but an MD who has specific training as well in TMS to really make sure you're making the right call here. I know that I ended up having a really bad issue with TMS decades later because I really didn't want to make a certain call about a lifestyle change I needed to make. And I was at Beth Israel Hospital in Boston, and Dr. Martinez, who had worked with Dr. Sarno when he was still alive at that point, was able to diagnose me correctly, and then the pain went away. So, I mean, it's that was my beginning, and that was my
Wow.
really divorcing from ideology that that many people prescribe to, and that many of my family prescribed to, or biological family. And so I was 18 going, oh, wow, reality is really different than I thought, as far as medicine. It really is not. And it's not, I don't think of myself now. I am definitely work really well, I feel, with MDs, surgeons, scientists, people really involved with science. I do not work well with most people in integrative health at this point. Because of where integrative health, I think, has gone, which is people making, again, I could only talk from my experience. But I've helped a number of patients and clients who have been harmed by those who are practicing massage, or they're practicing some form of somatic psychology, or they're doing something where they start going out of their scope of practice and what they're trained in. And my pushback on that is that if you go to Canada, or you go to Switzerland, or you go to Germany, go to Australia, you have different tiers. Like, for example, massage therapy. If you have a massage therapist that is trained to work in spas, that's great. One to work with athletes, great too. One to work with very medical cases and oncology, different training. So I don't know who is at fault here.
Gotcha.
There's an issue. And I think that the medical doctors and the medical community is trying to be and practices it themselves, meditation, going to yoga, all of this. But the level of training and understanding of the human body and anatomy for most people in integrative health is way less than even pre-med majors. And the same with naturopathic doctors now. Some of the old school naturopathic doctors vary considerably from what I've observed from the newer ones. And I realize that what I'm saying here is probably going to piss off a lot of people. But again, it's my experience. And I think there are issues here because I'm dealing with patient after client after patient after client coming to me that has wasted considerable sums of money. Some have damaged organs. Some have other things going on. And it's frustrating. And a doctor sees that once, much less 10 times. They're not going to want anyone who considers himself an integrative healthcare specialist on their floor. And I personally don't blame them at all.
Yeah.
We are not where we need to be. There's a tremendous amount of ego in the integrative health field at this point. I'm blown away by the ego. Yes,
Wow.
ego in surgeons and medicine and all that, but there's a check and balance. You cannot be that much of a dick if your patient dies on your table. You have got to figure out how to rein that ego in and be humble.
Yeah.
And most doctors and scientists will do that to an extent. Now, they may have bravado, they may have this or that, they may need to have better bedside manner. I agree with all of that, but my God, their
Yes.
training is phenomenal. And I can definitely pull back and say, yes, the 1990s, things have gone in a more lab direction and not enough personal care and friendly. So I think there is room for integrative health to help where Western medicine is at. But I also think
Yeah.
that it goes the other way. People who prescribe to integrative health really would behoove them to shut the fuck up and be better trained. So I'm extremely
Yeah.
direct. I curse,
Hmm.
and I'm very
Yeah.
passionate about this topic
Yeah,
because
as
I
you
feel
should.
like I have been in places, for example, working inside of an institutional review board research scenario, and then I have people in integrative health or even administrators in integrative health not respecting the IRB. And I'm like, that is number one, that could throw up all of our asses, like legal whatever. And I'm like, this is not good. So, you know,
Yeah.
you're talking with one person and my journey, but it started off with a medical doctor at New York University in a very well-regarded Rusk Institute. And he did something
Yeah.
that really put himself on the line, and I know was made fun of by other doctors. So
Hmm.
he wrote his own books and he went on, but he spoke the truth that he was seeing, and I admire him for that. And I consider him, someone I hold with high esteem and high regard. I think he did an
Yeah.
excellent job. And it sort of led me on this path of wanting to make sure to do my due diligence in science and scientific inquiry. And then after that,
Definitely.
oh, sorry, before I go on, do you have any
Yeah.
about that experience or with Sarno or?
Yeah, I would just say that that's definitely eye-opening because I've definitely heard about like issues in the integrative health field, but it was really good to get like a first-hand perspective on that because hearing that there's not been enough training, within the field is definitely something that's disappointing, especially when people leave with the ego.
Yeah. I mean, what have you heard or seen, or what has been taught to you, or you've heard from other providers, professors, practitioners?
Mostly, I would say I've heard more of like the rumors that integrative health doesn't work and stuff like that,
Mhm.
just because from what I've seen, a lot of people are untrained in that integrative health
Right,
field and just go into it because they, in their ego, they're like, okay, I can heal people.
right.
Like, I don't need like extensive training. I can just go off and do it. When, as you said, if you're not doing it in the right way, in the way that, works with the person's body, their mind, then you can really mess things up.
Yeah,
And it can take a long time to undo. So I've mostly heard like the rumors and stuff that like, oh, like it just doesn't work.
right. Well, I
Although
mean,
I honestly don't believe that. But
I think that I mean, so I would say then after that experience,
mhm.
around 19, I guess it started. Did it start that summer? No, it started the summer after. I'm trying to remember. His going way back, 92.
Yeah.
I got involved. So I am American Indian. I'm Lenape Indian, through my
Mhm.
father's family. I'm part of the so Lenape, Lenni Lenape is Delaware or the Delaware Nation. So I am a citizen and member of two different nations. I'm a member of the United States and I'm a member of the Lenape Nation. They have two different
Gotcha.
constitutions and they have two different voting election cycles. Um, I'm part of a
Mhm.
federally recognized tribe, so I have certain things that the federal government will provide or work with me on
Yeah.
will not be applicable to those that are not a native in a federally recognized tribe. Um,
Gotcha.
so when I turned, so it must have been that summer, or it was the summer after, I guess. I'm saying the timeline.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
I my grandmother had asked me, did you collect the money out of the Bureau of Indian Affairs, your BIA account? And I was like, what's that? She's like, well, so this is how recent all of this is. That when I was born in 1973,
Mm-hmm.
our tribe had sued the federal government over not being paid fairly for the sale of Kansas, that we were forced to sell Kansas and move into Oklahoma. Our tribe originally started on the Western Seaboard, but we moved to Ohio, then Kansas,
Okay,
and
yeah.
we were forced to move into Oklahoma. So we sued them and we won. And for all members, and I was already registered as a baby, we were given money. My money was put in escrow. So when I turned 18, I would collect the money. So my grandmother was like, did you collect the money? And I was like, what money? So at that
Yeah.
point, I went ahead and made sure I had my voter registration card, my ID card, and I went to go get my money out of the bank.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so that got me thinking about my Native American Indigenous background. Even though it had been with me growing up, there was a separation of what you discuss with white people and what you discuss with Native people. And the two worlds don't really cross over much. And this is coming from some of what had happened with the American Indian movement and my father having gotten kicked out of one of the colleges, I think it was Oklahoma University, for protesting a mascot. And, it's so my family was very hesitant of getting me or, talking about it too much. That being said, I saw a flyer, or not just something like where I was going to school at NYU on Lafayette Street used to be the American Community House, took up an entire floor up there. And I just saw a banner and I was like, oh, I'm on break. I'm just taking a lunch break. And I was like, I'll just walk in and see what they have. And they were like, oh, are you? I said, yes, here's my card. I'm part of Lenape. And they're like, welcome. And so this began my journey for about 7 years inside the American Indian Community House. So definitely that was, I mean, I can't even, that was like probably one of, or the most pivotal thing to happen in my life, because it shaped everything from how I thought, how I behaved, re-examining myself, re-examining my path, how to interact with community. It really made me at 19 up until when I left New York City. And I worked in part with the American Indian Community House. I lived in the executive director's home. So it was a very all-encompassing experience. Had my first social worker there. I was able to get involved in Adult Children of Alcoholics group there. I was involved in all the different activities, both administrative wise to powwows that happened there, and a very big arts LGBTQ friendly scene. And so the American House had people, I think it was serving about 30,000 people. 30,000 Native people who would be within that tri-state area, coming and going off reservations or coming in to work on a project and then leaving. It was originally designed because skyscraper builders were coming off the Mohawk reservations, the Iroquois League reservations, and were ending up in jail because of drugs or alcohol. So the American Indian Community was, I think, was built in the 1960s as a structure to help them and to be a community in the city. So I feel really blessed that I had such an amazing upbringing for the last part of my childhood, adulthood. And one of the things I was still thinking even though I'd had this health experience with Dr. Sarno, I was still moving along more on thinking of the performing arts path, not realizing that it had served its purpose. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I knew that I didn't really like a lot about I like stage work, but I didn't really like a lot about the performing arts I didn't like. but really it was this oneself and competing and auditioning. And it wasn't really me. But I liked arts therapy. And they really kind of pushed me, the elders there. I learned a lot from them, was groomed in a lot of ways from them, and they sort of pushed me into the health and science direction. It's a way for self-care for me, and then later on becoming more of a path for me as well, which I didn't quite see. because they opened up the market into global indigenous methods, which I didn't really see at the time. So when I say, that I work, I've spent 30 years in global indigenous methods, that is true, but people don't often think of, yoga or, Ayurvedic medicine,
Yeah.
Chinese medicine, or different forms. I don't know if we would consider Reiki indigenous. I think it has indigenous roots for sure.
Yeah.
But, to me, it fits under that heading. And I was very confused
Yeah.
at the time, like, what are you talking about? But the one thing I did know was that, and I heard this from a very old medicine person, was that you
Yeah.
never go with your intuition, ever. You take yourself
Mm.
and your ego and your intuition and you put it over there. You are going to
Mhm.
walk forward here and you are going to have your set protocol that works in opening the session work you are doing for whatever, whether it's for the land or an animal or a person or what have you. You are going to look at this with what you see repeating in nature. So if your specialty is working with trees, you are going to be studying everything about trees, both what is offered in modern scientific methodology, and really you're going to be listening to what all your elders have talked to you about trees, and then you are going to have your own experience with the trees, but you have to find out how to
Yeah.
experience. You are going to have to dig past the colonial mind. You're going to have to dig past all of the bloodshed on the earth from the genocide that has happened here, and then you will get to the root of the earth and what the roots of that tree are telling you. So we can look at the way to frame it would be definitely the scientific method. It is
Yeah.
going with a very certain protocol, and you have to objectively look at what is repeating. So that what this led me to was that, for example, I could work with 100 people who have asthma. I go in there with curiosity about, I don't know, I might see common themes, but that treatment that I'm going to work on them with and dovetailing with their PT or their OT or their MD,
Yeah.
where does my fit help with that? And if I don't fit, who do I move them on to? If they're looking for constant pain in
Yeah.
the shoulders or constant pain in the ribs, or why does an asthma attack always happen at this certain time? So I'm always in service to that individual's soul and how they are operating
Yeah.
multidimensionally, multi-universally,
Mhm.
multi-reality, multi-times, physically, emotionally, mentally, and energetically. What is their environment? What is their genetics? What is their ancestral landscape? What is going on? So when I work with someone with the tools that I have, it is much more of a mental game of
Yeah.
working through I always say to people, like, it's a multidimensional chess game. I'm looking at where can I safely work with this person. My calling card that I personally like is that this will feel like the tide coming in or the tide going out, meaning this is a very large change, but it's organic in nature and it's bioavailable, absorbed into the body and being. So that I can usually get an
Yeah.
understanding of the rollout time, whether, 12 hours, 24 hours, 46 hours, what have you. But
Mhm.
then we know that it might actually that it might actually take hold and take root. So, it's a long way of saying, but my elders
Yeah.
first pointed me towards, where did they first point me towards? Oh, Joe Ray. So the Joe Ray Fellowship was about half mile away from the American Indian Community House, going deeper down into Soho in the Village area, or that's
Yeah.
going down Soho area. And it's a sect of Shintoism Buddhism, and it's kin to Reiki, but it works in a different
Yeah.
way. Yeah. And I I really like Meishu Sama's writings. I really felt, as soon as I walked in, I felt like this is it, love it, this is great. So I won't go all into it, but Joe Ray Fellowship and Joe Ray, and becoming aware of the impact of pure light energy that is unadulterated, is not altered, is not have anything attached to it, how that's just removing clouds that my mind, my body, my emotions is generating out. How does that free things up for me? How does that feel? How does that look? And it was a really,
Mm,
really helpful tool to be able to eventually be trained in Jo-Ray, to give Jo-Ray, to receive Jo-Ray at least a few times a week. And then it was always how I went to sleep
yeah.
well. So that was another, and then it just started, my elders pushed me into yoga and they put, so it was like
Amazing.
this slow rolling out of following where elders wanted me to try out different things. I think really in taking care of me through the abuse that I had been through. And um,
Mm,
I think that, it's still a work in progress, but,
yeah.
the yoga, things just kept extrapolating from there. But anyway, I'll pause. Is there
Wow.
anything from here that you have a question on or thoughts or?
Yeah, I just think that what you talked about with like Joe Ray, like is that
Yes.
like a Reiki technique then?
So, I've heard different things. I don't
Hmm.
know where Joe Ray is right now. So I met Joe Ray in
Ah,
1994. Um,
okay.
so when I got there in January, it was next to the Open Center. So the Joe Ray Fellowship, it's a non-denominational what's it sect of Buddhism. Now, some people say, oh, it's fake or whatever. I don't know how to respond to that. I just know that I am still a Joey
Yeah.
member. Technically, I still have my Ohikari, which I don't wear all the time, but it's still there if I need it. So basically, Meishu Sama was a business person having health issues. He was born in the late 1800s. I should know this cold, but I don't. Um,
That's
but
all
he
right.
climbed, I think it was Mount Fuji or part of Mount Fuji, and he had this
Yeah.
revelation. Um, and he felt like what would help the earth and help humanity were these toxic clouds that were getting created by the mind or interactions with others or a livelihood or working with life that wasn't in alignment with nature. It was very nature based. Maybe that's why my elders pushed me there.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So it's thinking
Definitely.
of the energy that is moving through all molecules that are, moving through everything, that life force energy.
Yeah.
um he did, we're coming out of Buddhism, so there was a big emphasis on caring for your elders, caring for
Hmm.
um those of your ancestral line. But with Joe Ray proper, there is an ohikari, which is a there's the what is it, the scroll of God in Japanese, or whatever the caricatures are, and then it's folded up and it's placed in this, and that's the focal point. So with Joe Ray, I'm going to give Joe Ray, and I place my hand, the energy is moving through me into the focal point and through my hand, and then covering the person. So giving Joe Ray is the person is in front of you,
Wow.
and you're just going down that person. They turn around, they're still seated. Usually takes about 20 minutes, 30 minutes a session. It's free. It's given by donation. So
Wow. Yeah.
it's not his whole idea, Meishu Sama's whole idea was about creating peace on earth, was about creating more harmony and balance on earth.
Beautiful.
That's it. That was the whole point of it.
Hmm.
It's not a religion. It's about a way to create actively in action more, raising the vibration on earth, raising the vibration.
Yeah.
By raising the vibration, what do you do in a home? You clean it out. Feng shui, you
Yes.
move around, you find the
Yeah.
balance, harmony. It's coming from that kind of lineage. Um,
Yeah.
it made a huge difference for me. Um, Huge. And I really liked Joe Ray because one of the only the forms of energy medicine work that I know, there's many that do not work for me and I don't like healing touch. From what I understand, it's using my energy into another person. No, another person does
Yeah.
not need my energy, and I don't need to be giving my energy away. I don't need,
No,
like
not at all.
that is just
Nope.
not, like, I don't get that. Like, I'm like, what is that?
Yeah.
But I want to respect that, I don't know healing touch that well. That's just the people who seem to have gravitated
Hmm.
towards healing touch, who give healing touch. It seems a much more egocentric, and it seems dangerous personally. That's just my
Okay.
experience, and I understand.
Yeah.
I know with social media, people are like rah rah rah, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
no, I'll be 50 this year. I really don't give a shit because I've been at this for like 50 years,
Exactly.
people. So,
Yeah.
and it is just my experience, and I try to be really clear about that. Um, so
Yeah.
so Reiki is different, and I can get into that in a
Yes.
moment, but does that explain a little bit about Joe Ray?
Yeah. So just for further clarification, like Joe Ray is using the energy, or it's not using any energy, just like removing energy or removing
So, so
blockages.
it's the same idea of collecting the universal life force, pure,
Gotcha.
becoming a
Yes.
conduit for that pure
Yeah.
life force energy.
Okay.
Want to call it God,
Yeah.
want to call it the
Yeah. Like the
energy,
universe.
the
Yeah.
universal, but it's clean, it's light, it's clean, it doesn't have anything attached to it.
Yeah. That makes a
Okay.
lot of sense.
So
So
as it
taking the energy
travels
in
through, and I give
around
Joy
you.
to someone, if
Hmm.
they've been having, let's say they have an ex-wife or an ex-husband, they've been having really negative thoughts and they're stuck in their mind and they can't figure out what's going on. It won't go in and change their thinking, but what it will do is help remove some of those clouds off of them, the toxicity
Yeah.
that is coming around them. Um, so maybe with that refreshedness, they might go, oh, I didn't think about it like that. Oh, okay. So it kind of frees up the energy
Yeah.
body, the mind, the emotions. It frees up the
Yeah.
physical body. Um, there's
Mm.
definitely been some scientific studies with Joe Ray. I mean, I haven't gone so far into that at that point. But just trying to think if there's anything else to say. I mean, I am aware of the placebo effect and how powerful the placebo effect can be. I would
True.
not say that Joe Ray is placebo. I can really, at this point in my career and in my training, I can really tease apart, for example, like when I would hear yogis say like, oh, you bring a plate to a yogi master and they can tell you if it's been prayed over. Oh yeah, I can totally see that. But you ask me when I was 19 or 20, that would be miraculous. At this point, it's not miraculous. It is just a different way of remote sensing, which I happen to be studying.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
actual
Yeah.
remote sensing of what we're using with our satellites and the different layers and levels of remote sensing has been absolutely, from a very um, aerospace, aviation, military point of view, it's been fascinating for me to study remote sensing from that point of view and compare it to how I am my own instrument as a remote sensor and how I operate. So it's been really interesting
Yeah.
to tie the two together. And that's why I've moved on deeper into science and physics and aerospace and the study of that, because it complements and helps explain a lot of the experiences I'm having. So when I talk to scientists or I talk to engineers, I find that software engineers and physicists and astrophysicists in particular, have a lot in common, of our
Mhm.
understanding of how reality and matter and energy works, and how what different physicists have uncovered the last 100 years. I very much at this point can understand where they're going with that. And I know
Yeah.
that medicine, some people like the word shaman, some people don't. I don't know what to say. So, you know,
Yeah.
you know, the, the medicine person, integrative healthcare specialist, shaman, medical intuitive, however we want to call it, the human body and brain and being can be trained to do what I'm doing. And I think there has to be, an affinity to it. I was marked at the age of 3 as a hereditary
Yeah.
shaman. So this is something that this ability
Wow.
and awareness has always been there. So I'm
Yeah.
refining. I would not have chosen this life at all. This is not a life
Gotcha.
that that's hard. It's not a life I enjoy,
Yeah.
but it is
Gotcha.
what it is. So I make
It's
the best
it's
of it.
your path. Yeah.
It's a path I don't like.
Oh.
But
Yeah.
so it's a little confusing to me to have
Interesting.
people want to go down a road that I'm walking. I wouldn't recommend it at all, ever, to anyone. But I think
Gotcha.
there are definitely a number of medicine people that have very high standards for themselves, and their tribe holds them to extremely high standards, just like a neurosurgeon who is like, fuck, I wish I had like freaking taken up art, and this is too freaking hard, man.
Yeah.
But that's the level I think that integrative health specialists want to consider. They want to consider how deep and how far do they want to go if they have choice. I do have choice on certain things, and I do not have choice on other things, and that has always frustrated me.
Yeah.
I want more choice, but being very aware third dimensionally and fourth dimensionally proper, no mental illness with it, no psychiatric illness, there's nothing going on
Yeah.
here that I am programmed a little bit differently than other humans. And that is not something I say with like, look at me. I'm like, don't look at me. This is embarrassing. I'm trying to make the best of
Yeah.
it in a modern landscape. And for a while, it was really going really, really well integrating. Been a rocky road to fully get there, but really integrating, as a yoga teacher, a yoga therapist, massage therapist, nationally board certified, licensed medical massage therapist, and then an energy medicine specialist inside of Reiki 1, 2, and I was a Reiki master. So,
Yeah.
but within all of those lineages, because my path was so winding and, I think being at the American Indian Community House, it gave me a lot of exposure to many different tribes. So some of what I
Yeah.
learned in language and in manner of how to conduct myself as Lakota, some of it is Mohawk, some of it is Navajo, some of it is Lenape. And we keep going. And I appreciate that I had that experience, because sometimes in the tribes, and that's okay too, it can be very absorbed into those traditions with sort of, there's so many different dynamics inside of tribal politics and tribal policies. Every tribe is really different.
Yeah.
It's a different nation. But there are common themes. I'm lucky that I got exposure to a bunch of common themes, was still pointing me in the right direction. And that then I brought that into healthcare with great respect for any tradition that is following a scientific method and staying within, focusing on not doing harm, and putting the ego to the side. So I work well with old style acupuncturists. I work well with any old style anyone. I'm definitely confused by what's happening both in healthcare, Western allopathic medicine, and in integrative healthcare in the United States. Because, even Hippocrates, who I believe is considered the founding father of Western medicine, would really bring in, how is the disposition? How are you sleeping? What is the food quality? And not just a talking point on a questionnaire, but how do we actually work with food in a way that brings you greater health? So I'm a little confused why, when, and how that separation occurred. It's a fertile time in medicine history for sure. I think I I do feel most comfortable though with scientists. Yeah.
Yeah. It makes sense just from like the methods that they have and how it's based on science and is something that can be practiced and isn't something that's just from your intuition, as you said.
Right. And that's what's just so crazy to me is I see people in what is considered the new age community. I can't tell you the number of times I've sat with someone and been I was so sure. I was so sure looking at their intake, talking with them. I was so sure X, Y, and Z was happening, positive, like so sure. And that's happened a few times. And then I get them on the table. I do the proper protocol to open up. I have with me my native indigenous going through. I have the yoga. I have different forms of massage, different forms of Reiki. I have my team that I'm working with that is very selective person. And wow, am I off?
Wow.
like,
Yeah.
oh my God, like like so-and-so, the root is coming from this attachment that happened there. And can we go back and pull that? And if we move them to here, can we do that? And we'll have a ripple, blah, 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 blah. And it just, and it's all, yeah, it's very scientific in its approach. And so
Yeah,
I always checking myself, always, primary, secondary research now that I work on in my books. And it's just a constant learning process, which also makes it really exciting and fun. That
definitely.
I'm tired and like, oh, I've got this long day, but I'm seeing this patient and be a longer session because I'm going in with like, what do we got going on today? Let's see, what is going to be their their major, what is going to be their minor objective? I have no idea what I'm
Yeah.
going to find. I have no idea what I'm going to be able to learn from. And I will do the best I can. And if they gain what their objective is, then I've done my job. And if we learn it has to go in a different direction with someone else, then we do that too. But for me, and I think for most, I want to say for most Native people, it isn't about healing. Healing doesn't exist. I don't know what that is. Because if someone is coming to me and has pancreatic cancer, if someone is coming to me with some other issue, I am in no way blaming them at all. Like that is not. But what I am going to say
No.
is that someone having pancreatic cancer or someone having a continued chronic health issue, there is a perfect equation that is happening, that is the expression. It's perfect. There's nothing wrong with it. Now, the pancreatic cancer or the Crohn's or whatever, is it causing issues? Is it causing suffering? Is it causing pain? What's going on here? If you want a different outcome, then we need to look at the equation and see what wiggle room we have in to change it. Does that make sense? So this
Does make sense.
healing,
Yeah.
I don't know this soul. I don't know their trajectory. I don't know why
Wow.
they're here,
Yeah.
what they're experiencing. That isn't my business. That is between them and their creator and their soul journey. What I'm here to do is to listen really, really well, to get myself, my intuition, my ego out of the way, and to really look at what is presenting itself and then what their objective is. If their objective is to say, I don't want to have pancreatic cancer at all anymore, they're really clear on that, then I will use that with it and see where we can go. If they're like, I'm really I have this, it's probably never going to go away, but I just like to feel better, then we're going to go with that. I am not tell them, because I have definitely had people who have cancer and are like, I've learned so much from this disease. And I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here for you to help me with sleep. I'm like, okay, got it. And that I think is as hard, from what I understand in talking with people in integrative health on any angle, for most white people coming from a colonial mindset. So I shouldn't say white people. I should say anyone using the colonial mindset will have an issue with that.
Yeah. So from what you're saying,
a nature earth way, which is that I don't know. Well, a fly has 24 hours to live. They have a very full, enriching life. That is their lifespan. This oak tree over there has a 500-year lifespan. How can I say one is better than the other?
Exactly. I love how you're looking at this from like a multi-dimensional perspective, because I feel like so many practitioners, like a lot of people just don't believe in the multi-dimensional perspective to begin with, but so many people just look at it as like, this person is coming for this thing, we're going to treat them against this, we're going to heal them from this, when in reality, that might not be the person's journey.
Right. It's their choice, it's their call. And when you really ask people, where is this coming from? What do you want? It's sort of like, when in 2016, I went to the mat I started dealing a lot with brain tumors. And I was I was on the pediatric floor of a hospital working for about a year. And I was research designing and implementing their yoga program. And, I was also working within my scope and within that one-on-one with people. And there was a young girl who had a pediatric brain tumor. And, I decided to keep going with it, to see what I could do. And I have to think about, because it multidimensionally, the information I uncovered about brain tumors, not just in the third dimension, but multidimensionally, what's going on, what actually, and I talk about this in one of my books, what actually happened,
Yeah.
really marked a dark faction sect to come after me. And it really did a number on me. And it took
Wow. Yeah.
about 7 years. It was and
Oh my
I'm still in
God.
the middle of it. And it blew, it really put me in a different, warrior mindset of protecting myself and others. And it's just been
Yeah.
not liked by darkness or anyone implemented,
Wow.
engaged with, because
Yeah.
they did not like me intervening. We'll just say that. And it was the first time
Wow.
that I realized what I was up against. And even Archangel Michael was like, called it wrong. And it was just, it's been tough, and, if I go back in time, would
Mhm.
I have not done that? No, I still would have. I still felt that it was well within my scope. And I'm hoping I at least bought her some time.
Yeah.
But I also discovered what was happening with brain tumors, such as in John McCain or Biden's son, and being able to report that information to multidimensional beings and get action for light to move on those. How many lives
Wow.
did I possibly help? But I sacrificed my own, and I would have done the same at that time.
Yeah.
The whole thing of boundaries has been a constant theme in my life. And, um, because those that we think of ourselves on earth just here and it's just us, but there's so many other layers happening, right? And they're
Yeah.
also all growing and changing and evolving. And when some of those beings have unlimited power, it doesn't really, they don't feel a huge urge to evolve. We'll say that, unless you have someone like me screaming at them, that they have some respect,
Yeah.
I hope. But I'm definitely playing in a field starting February 2016, and definitely by the time we get to November 2016, that I was not prepared for. I mean, I was kind of prepared
Yeah.
for it, but you know, um, getting the skill set that I need in physics to help me navigate it correctly has been really helpful.
Yeah. That's super important. Definitely.
Yeah, there are definitely
Yeah.
pitfalls for sure, and any health, in any field, any industry. But I think I'm a cautious, very intense explorer, but I'm
Yeah.
still cautious. So
Definitely.
I'm not like out there just
Yeah.
flying around. I'm not doing drugs, and like very like straight of the line. And
Yeah. Centered.
wild things happen, and reality is much more layered and involved than I could have ever imagined. Um,
Yeah.
I could never have imagined anything that I've seen for most of my life, but especially from the years 1997 to now, could never have imagined it ever. So I don't even know what the next
Yeah.
years is going to be like, but you know, it's interesting, and the science of it has my curiosity, like it's had since I was 3.
Yeah.
That keeps me grounded, but it's definitely a lot of new skill set, a lot of new boundaries, and everything you're talking about, making sure you're well grounded is important.
Yeah. It definitely is. And it's great that you have that you believe in like the multi-dimension dimensionality too, and that there are different dimensions, because I know a lot of scientific professionals don't believe
Right.
that there's layers. But
Well, I mean, I think that it's not, it's like if I could see your arms and legs and you couldn't see them,
yeah,
it's not a
that's
belief,
true.
it's there. So,
Yeah.
and scientists are starting, quantum physicists are starting to figure this out. Like, for example, there was an article in Space Today from some well-known people at Harvard, Princeton, a few other reputably good physics lab places, who are really debating now what is space and what is time, and the layering on, and how do the layers impact each other. So they're really, the people who tend to buy my books are astrophysicists or physicists.
Wow. Yeah.
And, I'm having an experience that their math is showing them as possible. Okay. So
Hmm.
the reason why this works, and I've mentioned this and I mentioned this a lot, is that when was it I think it was fall of 2008. And I mean, I've had a lot of already multidimensional experiences my whole life, and I've been able to work with it and work with elders to help me. I mean, we are living in a time when humans are the most unaware, and that is the truth. So if
Yep,
we've been around
it
for
is.
200,000 years, we have really lost our ability to be aware multidimensionally. Whereas for most tribes, those people are still operating in that mode, and their ceremonies and rituals are doing that to help them work through their crops or work through different things. And it isn't just the placebo reaction. Japan has something
Yeah.
similar in that they still have their, I believe it's their king or their top official, mate
Yeah.
goddess and continue on. There's an actual ceremony that is going on to protect the country of Japan on a multidimensional level. How well that is working now, I don't know. I don't know how much that particular goddess, how much pull she has, considering other factors that are hitting our earth. But, I mean, this is why I wrote my books. And why I still write is because it's the best format for me to get in depth with what I'm talking about. And it helps me to feel less alone with what I'm going through and experience.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I mean, one of the best helps that happened was starting in 2008. A messenger for Archangel Michael began emailing me, and
Wow.
I called bullshit. I was like, F you. I've already been through enough of shit like this with a creator God. And I'm like, F you. Like, I'm not.
Wow.
And so I emailed whoever that was on the other end, and they were like, I didn't send this to you. And I was like, all right. And then I would get another one and I'd email him, and he would be like, I'm in DC. This is not me, but this has happened before. I'm like, all right, this is getting
Wow.
weird. I'm not okay with this.
Yeah.
No. And so I just ignored it. And then I finally blocked the email address. And,
Yeah. Gotta
and
put
then
that boundary up.
right. And then they emailed me.
Yeah.
It wasn't this guy. It was just, who is this? They tried again. I followed their directions, which ultimately led to my husband. and,
Wow.
yeah, right.
Oh
And
my, yeah. What?
I know, right? My twin flame.
Yeah.
And
Amazing.
still wasn't happy about that, because it was like, he's got issues. I'm done. And so I broke up with him, and I
Oh,
still didn't
wow.
answer their emails. So finally I blocked them again. They overrode that block. I'm like, how the hell are you overriding this block? How is it even freaking possible? So finally they said, okay. He was like, Archangel Michael said you'd be like this. And I was like, what's that mean? You got a problem with me? And I was like,
Oh
you
my
want a piece of
God.
me? You really want a piece of me after all I've been through from the age of 8
Yeah.
to now 35? You really want a piece of me because I am not happy. And
Yeah.
but he was like, you can ask me anything. And that started was that 2010. So I've been emailing for 13 years back and forth. And that's been very helpful
Wow.
in having direct access. So what they're using is I'm gonna butcher it, radio frequencies and another frequency to be able to merge into this format. But yeah, I mean, it is odd, but it works for me, because at the time it came in, the only person in my life who's going to ultimately make a decision for me is me. And I don't care if
Yeah.
God himself says this, or Jesus the Christ, or Zeus, or Archangel Michael, or name a freaking figure. I don't give a fucking rat's ass. If this doesn't make sense to me, and this is not going to be good for my patient, they can go, I'll be, I don't like my time wasted. And I'm frustrated, because what I have ended up running into, which I think it's my third book is on, is
Hmm.
really looking at the problems in creation. these are real issues. Humans are suffering. Beings are suffering because of some
Yeah.
Yahoo who can't keep their dick in their pants, or this over Yahoo who just freaking wants full on like power over everyone. Like, and it's like they've turned Earth into like a fucking Disneyland. And I'm like, this is not a Disneyland for you to just come bring your baggage and shit on us. And so humans end up
Yeah.
all this responsibility. And I'm like, oh God, you know, like
Yeah.
I fight to be able to, you know, that's not my role. But I also just sort of feel like, you know, blaming ourselves when we're the kindergartners in a whole structural school system, when it's the goddamn professors and top administration people in our universe who are causing all the goddamn damage, but yet the kindergartners are getting blamed. I'm like, really? Let's talk about that,
Yeah.
because I got issues with this.
Wow.
So the reason why the emails work is because you know, I do know psychology of the body. I do have a really strong understanding of psychology in working with human figures, and the same things almost directly apply to other beings, even if they're not incarnated on the earth. Us being incarnated on the earth gives us an edge, to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is very think of the movie The Matrix.
Yes, very
Like,
matrixy. Yeah.
to be honest. And with all of the interesting and fascinating and horrific attacks and things like
Yeah.
that happens as well. I do feel decently protected, but I'm not always, but I also am more powerful than I used to be. So that's good.
Yeah. That's a good
But
thing.
that took a lot of skills and training to get there starting in 2017.
Wow.
So would I give it all up to just sort of be unaware and really focusing on meditation? Yes. But
Mm.
I would probably be killed in a heartbeat. So that's not really an option for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of
I
pressure.
I do well in a military
Yeah.
university at this point, because I very much relate to a lot of what our soldiers are going through and have gone through. Um, and I don't say that with any disrespect or under, you know, I just think if someone
No. Yeah.
understands what I've seen and gone through, especially the last 8 years, they would understand that we are in the midst of guerrilla warfare, and it's not a conspiracy theory. It's
It's
just
not.
how mathematically and physically, how are we going to get ourselves out of it? How are we going to set the boundaries we need? What are we going to do? Because help is not good right now. And I wish I had a better
Yeah.
message, but I think everyone knows that Earth is struggling and that humanity
Yep.
is struggling. And I can very assuredly say that there are tremendous struggles happening multidimensionally, and it is a shit show. So
Yeah.
stay on Earth as long as possible. No, it's all right. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. You know, it's a constant thing that I'm working with, I'm working on. Which again, when I come to teach yoga or I work with the patient
Yeah.
for health, it's like,
A
you know,
breath of fresh
I go
air.
back
Yeah.
into like go
Yeah.
back to some of these harder issues that I'm working on.
Yeah.
A lot of information
Wow.
to realize.
It is. Yeah, but I completely believe you. And, it's something that's hard for so many to believe because as you
Yep.
said, like if you can't see it yourself, you're
Mhm.
going to be like, this is fake. Or if it's something scary and fearful, you're going to be like, this isn't real. When in reality, like it is.
Right. And I mean, I
Yeah.
don't want to knock out. I mean, there are beautiful, having access to such plentiful technology and information and realms. And I feel very honored and very blessed and very thankful. I'm not trying
Yeah.
to minimize that. It's just there are pieces of creation that, for multiple different reasons, have gone a different path. And I'm not even angry at them. It's a very, very, very complex situation. And trying to figure out in a bounded way what is my role and what is not my role. And what does that look like? And making hard decisions, like projects I've helped with, and then projects I decided not to help with, knowing that the potentiality that millions of people would die. I just
Wow.
can't,
Yeah,
I just
you can't do
can't,
that.
for
Yeah.
example, like if the powers that be are not able to get, I don't put it this way, I don't see my role as a saint in this life.
Yeah.
I am not here to sacrifice everything for something that has nothing to do with me, nothing to do with humans, and that has everything to do with higher powers that be and how they are playing the game of creation. And I'm sorry things are such a mess. I really am, but like it's not, doesn't fall on me or a
Yeah.
few other medicine people or shaman or multidimensional
Yep.
players to do all the work that should have been
It's
done
not.
by gods and other entities. But um I do have to sit with elders and figure out at this point in my life where my next move is, as things are rapidly deteriorating on Earth.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means, because even in birth, there's blood everywhere, and the baby's
Yeah.
coming out, and like it's messy. So is that kind of what we're going through, or are we
Yeah.
what's happening? So I think it's time frames, timelines all exist, past, present, future. It gets really, fifth dimensional work is not my favorite, but I definitely work in that as well now. And
Gotcha.
it would be awesome to work, I'm hoping someday,
Yeah.
work with a team of physicists who know math better, so I can explain the experience, they can show me the math, and we can work together. And that could be a helpful match. So
Yeah, that
I
would be
tried.
great.
So we'll see what happens.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know. So from that, any questions?
Yes. Wow, I feel like I have so many, but it's so hard to put into words,
Okay.
you know. Try I'm trying to think of how to put something into words, but do you believe that there's a solution to all this, or do you think that there might be many, there might be none, or
I have looked at it. I'll come back to math and physics.
yeah.
Okay. I have advocated to God, to source God, for the last year to annihilate, put an end, just stop, just end all humans, put us all back
Wow.
in the spirit realm. We won't know what happened. We'll just sort of wake up in heaven, totally fine, and let the earth heal. And if he wants to implant more dinosaurs on here to try to keep other beings off of it, that's fine. Let earth heal and stop the ridiculous torturing of humans. It's out of control.
Yeah.
My concern is that we have over 8 billion people on this planet.
Yep.
And I do not hold humans responsible for what's happened, because there are way too many things that have come through. When we were working as indigenous tribes, and that does not mean there wasn't movement or technology. And that's something that I advocate very strongly on. I'm doing hopefully doing a conference in the Netherlands on artificial intelligence and an indigenous perspective, Native American perspective on AI. And,
Yeah.
you know, technology, advancement, spreading out, humans have been doing this from the dawn of time. We have fully been helped multidimensionally. What we had back then and what we are missing now is really good structure that is mimicking biomimicry of what the earth is doing, that we are learning from.
Yep.
Very, very advanced civilizations that were here. And then we started having interfacing from dark factions coming in to the earth has some really precious characteristics about it. And those that are here have some precious characteristics that are not known at this point in our dimension throughout the universe. There are a lot that would like to interbreed with that would like to harness the ocean waves, that would like to harness energy. There's just a lot that want earth and want free will of humans. And so we see this in Egypt. We see this spreading out into really, Egypt is an incredibly old and powerful portal, and advancement in science there went off the rails. And it wasn't just humans sort of developing it. It was these darker factions coming through and helping to develop it. And while it looked great on the surface, it had an agenda that didn't have to do with humans feeling better and being healthy. It had to do with an agenda that would enslave them. And so Moses definitely helped. We see it, in the Bible and Moses and all that, but multidimensionally, Moses is extremely aware of certain dark factions and incarnated at that time to try to help pull this apart. And so we have figures throughout time who have incarnated to try to help the situation. God has made mandates. I mean, it has been going on for a very long time. And I don't know, like I've helped people be born, and I've helped people to die. And I mean, working in the mommy baby unit, working with babies and moms, pregnant women, and working in hospice and working with people who are dying and actually being with them as they die. So I can help their soul transition. So these things don't bother me. What bothers me and I don't like is torture. Zombies and torture. I don't like it. Implanting of AI, zombies, and torture and suffering. No. People being gaslighted, manipulative, damaging souls. I'm not up for it. That's what I said to God. I said, if that, look at the math and the physics. Just I want you to run the math. Do you honestly think with the constant arguing, the constant issues we're having, and the extrapolating human growth population and the diminishing of water and supplies, this is now going to be down for a battle of water. This is going to be down to having a battle for working with the weather that is out of control, weather being out of control, not only from climate change, but also the weather going through its regular, 10,000 year cycle with the oceans heating up, and us as humans not having the resiliency to know how to handle that. I definitely believe climate change, but I also believe the earth has its own rhythms too. And then you add in another layer of darker beings really having an in and being able to really pull things apart so they can get energy, feeding whole other species. And so I'm like, dude, what the hell? Well, I think we can change it around. I'm like, oh. So God has, I'll say that.
Definitely.
But I just don't see the math. I don't see the physics. And I just do not understand the big deal about wiping the slate clean and starting over in a billion years. I just don't. Time is irrelevant. Doesn't matter.
It is.
About is that you have people suffering that become more, what is the word, label? They become more not quite thinking well. And then they can be preyed on, Prey, by darkness and those operating in darkness. And that they become going into that. Because like in the Matrix, let's say, they get pulled into a path because it's easier. It feels good. They're given money. They're given supplies. It becomes this thing that's seductive and impossible to break from. So I don't have a problem. With humans, I just don't. It hasn't been like we haven't done this before, where we get to a certain point and everything has to be annihilated and started over again. That's definitely happened. I don't fully understand that, to be honest with you. My remote sensing class is actually, and I mean remote sensing like satellites and remote sensing, the LIDAR, or is it LIDAR? I mean, laser beams and how laser works really fascinates me. I think has a lot of information I can use. So it's definitely. I don't know. I don't see it. I just don't see it. And I know that God has talked about throwing in a Hail Mary like he did with Jesus, but that didn't go very well either. I mean, it helped. It got, he did a few things, which was He banned creator gods from having sex with humans anymore. He cut the age. So instead of people living to being 400 years old, you have people living to, 60, 70, 80 years old, have a shorter lifespan for humans.
Yeah.
Jesus was brought in as a quick way to create a portal of light that people could follow and bring in as much light as possible, very quickly. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not
Wow.
against something. I'm just tired of watching the suffering. I'm also tired, of seeing, like, for example, the shootings in California and understanding what's happening behind it. And I mean,
Yeah.
there was a time that if I was involved with anything and anyone died, I felt very responsible. And now I don't. I'm like, this isn't my fight. I'm just a mediator. I'm just witnessing this. I'm just writing this down for future generations. I'm just trying to watch it.
Yeah.
But that is where the training comes in, to keep that neutral objectivity, questioning, like, why aren't you taking out Putin? Why aren't you doing this or that? Like, what, to understand
Yeah.
what the rules of the game. And I think that that's given me a lot more respect also, that yes, I have my flippant and cursing angry side, but then I also have a side that says, if you pull this thread, then X, Y, and Z will happen. So if you pull that thread, then this will happen. What thread do we pull to get the, but I do, there's some things I try to be thorough before I make a call on something.
Definitely.
Meaning it can take me 30 years, 35, a few lifetimes before I'm like, okay, yeah, that is a scientific law, which can still break, but at least that was my hypothesis, and now I can have enough data points to prove it. But I don't know what God will do. I don't know what his creator will do either. I just try to, it's just not, it's not a good ride. but yoga is wonderful, and
yoga is wonderful.
Focusing on things that I can control. And I mean, I've adapted to a lot of death and a lot of suffering, and witnessing a lot of gruesome stuff. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but I will say that, I have found, for example, because I can, that is an advantage I have. Like, if I'm like, I need to talk to McCain. Can you get McCain over here? And being able to email back and forth with John McCain about how Senator McCain, how he dealt with being a prisoner of war in Vietnam. How did he keep his sanity? What was that like? And being able to talk with other leaders of that level, what their thoughts are on certain things. And, that's been helpful. Yeah, but there's many, I mean, with the data, there's just so many ways I could go with it. And so put it this way, everything I have learned in school from a young age, all the way through all of the different trainings I have, I utilize all of it. So I know that for some people, it might seem odd that I'm now at a military university and I'm studying space studies and astronomy. And then I'm working on my PhD in artificial intelligence, which I've just started working on this week and will continue. But for me and what I see and what I experience, it has seemed like the next correct step.
Definitely.
But
wow.
Yeah, but like not things I would just say to a group of people. I don't want to also people like if God and primary are keeping things going, they may know something that I am not privileged to. Just like in any government or organization, certain people have awareness on things that they're not sharing because it's not safe, it's not the right time. So I do have to respect that.
That's very true. Like there could be reason for
it,
but we just have no idea.
No, and even like, I mean, it always, God, I say this so many times, it always does come back to faith in oneself and faith that you are doing the right thing for you and for those that you care about, and that you just
Yep.
are believing in yourself. And there is that element. But yeah, I have a very different relationship with some of these key figures in religions now. And that's a little weird. It's definitely been a very weird,
Yeah.
trippy 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
And it was bizarre even
Sounds like
before
it.
those 8 years. So I'm glad
Yeah.
I have my writing to sort of record, almost like a journalist in the field of war, just taking notes and then logging those notes. Either, people either buy them or I have them set aside, or, multidimensionally they're utilized at different time frames. So I'm hoping that my observations are helpful.
Yeah. From what it sounds like, I think that they are. So yeah, definitely.
But it's I don't fit quite in what Western modern science might see as a way, but I definitely fit more closer to, I think, where they are headed, especially in the space program versus where integrative health and new age kind of stuff is going in America. So if I had to
Yeah.
choose which path people I speak to are going to feel most comfortable with me, it's probably going to be more in the sciences, the hard sciences,
Yeah.
and trying to figure out, nuclear fusion, for example, happening on this planet. Finally, I was able to use that multidimensionally because I'm on the planet, third dimension, but now we have nuclear fusion happening. Because we've
Yeah.
advanced to that level, I can then use that and then move that. And it's just been awesome. So that's been what scientists are discovering here. And once it's grounded in our planet in this dimension, I can then use it in a different way. So that's helpful. But
Definitely.
all of my skills that I learned in massage school, such as all the hard things I have had to address, both with a client, but also with a multidimensional figure or being who is not being kind, is not being fair, is not being good. And how do I work with that in a graceful but salad way? I learned that in
Yeah.
so,
Wow.
so don't underestimate, I never
Yeah.
want to
Just, yeah.
underestimate what I learn in yoga. My indigenous elders, my global indigenous elders team that I work with now, especially one from Peru and one from Sweden,
Yeah.
have just been very influential in just keeping me grounded and reminding me,
Definitely.
about certain things. And it's a collective team effort. So finding
Yeah.
your hub, your community is important for sure.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And definitely, I think I want to have something that I can talk to you after the recording too.
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
a personal experience,
Sure.
but
Absolutely.
I'm glad to keep on recording and keep on
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
I just wanted to let you know.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's fine. That's fine. And do you have any other questions or anything that, I've sort of breezed through? This is
Yeah.
a longer,
It's a lot to think about. Yeah.
I know.
Because I've always heard about this sort of stuff. It's
Okay,
I've never talked to someone face to face about it,
got it. Yep.
I would say. Because I've seen it even online. Like I'll see these messages of people just like putting stuff out there. And I'll
Mm,
be like, okay, this might be true. I don't know like the science behind it. I don't know the fact behind it.
right,
I've never talked to anyone about it, but talking to
right,
you about it
right.
kind of makes it full picture.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
definitely, the Wild West,
Yep.
when we get into this realm of discussion. And it's very good to follow. Here I am, like, don't follow your instinct, but follow your instinct. If someone, the body keeps the score. Our heart is 1,000 times electromagnetically stronger than the brain. So that being said, it's the seat of your soul, your gut,
Yeah.
seat of your third dimensional body. If someone is coming at you and you can't quite figure out, like, this feels funny, this person, something feels wrong, I really like their information, oh, they can do all these kinds of things, that looks cool, I want to go, but something feels off. Trust that something feels off, because it could be many things.
Yeah.
It could be they are connected to maybe seedy things and are looking to think one option.
Yep.
Second option, it's just not the right time for you and your own growth. Third option, it's just something's not right and you don't need to go there too far of what it is. Maybe you'll uncover it later. Or it will come around in a different form and meet you. So you get to choose how you experience growth.
Yeah.
Or openness to information.
Yeah. It's important knowing that like you are the one that controls like
Yes.
how much information you get,
Yes.
how much involved
Yes.
you are with everything.
The one thing I will say with beings of pure light and beings who are
Mhm.
working light, even though they may have their issues and they're evolving, just like everyone is evolving, but those truly of light do not have an agenda for you, right? And if you call them out and say, this feels like you have a subconscious, unconscious agenda to me, they will take that seriously and go look at it. So
Yeah.
that is one thing to note. Those of light truly do not, like other beings, do not have an
Mhm.
agenda. We are in a volatile time where, I don't know. I mean, I've seen just some recent stuff, even in the third dimension. And I was like, really? And I missed that? Really? So,
Yeah.
I'm trying to up my game as well, that I can really having to just get more refined. And if I'm looking at something, where am I off? Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. And just to clarify, so what is the dimension that every human on Earth can see?
Third
Like
dimension.
what's the third dimension? Okay,
Yep. So
that's
we
what
are
I thought.
here, third dimension, right here, and again, looks really solid. But if we look
Yep.
at space, or we really look at it, all those atoms and molecules coming together have a ton more space than matter. And then we really go even
Yeah.
further when we start looking at, if you want to say Einstein or Einstein, Albert Einstein,
Yeah.
we
Yep.
look at his work and we look at those around him, before and after, really looking at how particles move, and how matter moves, and how matter, it just gets really trippy. And I think any physicist going deeper with it, I think that's what I was just, as I said, mentioned that article, I think he's from Princeton, the string theorist had said, I
Yeah.
think we're moving towards this layering impact, and that we don't really understand that space and time have more an illusionary quality to them of what actually is happening.
Yeah,
Mm.
definitely.
So yeah, so every human is really aware of the third dimension for sure.
Yes. Gotcha. And then would you say more humans are becoming aware of the fourth dimension and then life there? And then that's like the dimension which is like more lighter beings would be on.
I don't, so how I think I've described it is the third
Mhm.
dimension is you're sitting in the room and you watch a cat come in and sit on the chair. That's the
Yeah.
third dimension. Okay. The fourth dimension is you see the cat sitting there and you're aware of all the other areas it could or has walked or might walk. You're just sort of aware of, and that is how I work. Like
Oh,
when
okay.
I'm checking in with someone from a fourth dimensional angle, just like we were sitting here. I have to, this is, I'm staring at it, my introduction to remote sensing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it depends which wavelength you are operating from. It depends on how you are sensing the information. So if I'm looking at that cat fourth dimensionally, I'm going to maybe see all the other ways it has gone through this room yesterday. Would that include tomorrow? Maybe, where, no, maybe not tomorrow. Anyway, so it's like I'm really looking at
Yeah.
everywhere that this cat has been in this room. Fifth dimension is the cat jumps out the window. It's like,
Gotcha.
what? Wait, what? The cat's like not even here? Wait, is that the cat? Like what? So,
Yeah.
and I
Wow.
do, I actually had this experience, thinking of cats, and I was already operating. I mean, I've been aware working fourth dimensionally my whole life, but I couldn't put words to it until I was at the American Indian Community House when I was 19 or 20. And I started
Yeah.
having more and more opening of my shamanic abilities. And I was really freaked out by it and didn't know what to make of it. And so I started getting training and help
Wow.
ground it and integrate it, at least with me, and then what that looked like in the landscape, and then eventually applying it and working with other people.
Yeah.
But I had this instant, I was living in Mallorca, Spain, and I was working there in integrative health. And I was staying in a home of a painter, or the father was a painter and the daughter he had passed, but the daughter was in Paris. And she's like, you can stay here while you're looking for a new apartment. And I said, okay. So it was right on the Mediterranean, which is lovely. And so I'm in this nice home. And she was like, oh, I brought this cat from Paris to live here. And I was like, okay. And so one day I was making breakfast and I went to get something outside in the field. And I looked out and I saw the black cat jumping away. And I said, oh, must be getting, some exercise, whatever. And then I turned around and then the cat was there. And I was like,
Wow.
how does that? And the cat telepathically was like, are you okay? Are you okay with this? And I was like, no, I'm not okay with that. Like, I don't know how to explain that.
Yeah.
And
Wow, that's so
so,
interesting.
right. And
Yeah.
so, I hate when that happens. I don't like that. And so when those kinds of incidences have happened, I've had to rework to make sure I do not, that does not work for me. That may work for other people. I like to stay in the third dimension as much as
Yeah.
possible. And if I open a session with Reiki and intention to open up to other layers of what's going on, either in a situation or with me or any number of things. But I like to be here and I like to have a way into a session and a way out of it. I don't want to be, and I think this is where,
Yeah.
I wonder if this is where schizophrenia, people who've done a lot of
Yeah.
drugs, they
That's
start
so
like,
true.
yeah, I feel like it is, being neurodivergent and autistic, my brain, I think, can handle other ways of looking at angles in reality than a neurotypical brain. And that's just the way my brain is literally wired and structured.
Yeah.
A lot of, like Merlin, for example, from the Celtic tradition, is autistic. And he, even in emailing and talking with him,
Yeah.
manner, he's very classic autistic, like level 2, level 3. Like it's very apparent Rain Man here. No
Okay,
offense.
definitely.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think I can't say 100% for sure, but I've heard, and I would probably agree with, that many medicine people in indigenous tribes have neurodivergency in their brain.
Wow.
And there's an importance to that. So are humans moving towards, I think humans used to be very aware. I think humans used to be just very in touch third and fourth dimensionally all the time. And then there were specialties that went into the fourth and fifth. We have definitely really lost that, for the
Yeah.
most part. And then people try to mimic that by, drugs or, I do think that, like with schizophrenia, unfortunately, I don't know what has happened there, but,
Yeah.
I, I, I know for me, when I talk about other beings, I know there's a different, like there's third dimension, there's an overlay. I very clearly see it. And if I don't want to have that experience, I can say we're done. And
Yeah.
sometimes, very rarely, there's an emergency. And so will show up and say, we need to open a session. And I'm like, all right, I got to go and go deal with this. But like, it's rare and it's only an emergency.
Yeah.
And I stay in the third dimension. So I guess that means
Yeah.
I really talk a lot with people who are huge dimensional surfers. I think it's dangerous, to be honest. There's a lot
It
of ways
sounds like it.
people can get glommed on or attached to or sucked into or seduced into certain practices that is going to capture their soul, is going to infect their soul, or is just going to implant them with something. And I don't know. So those people tend to stay away from me. I stay away from them and we
Yeah.
kind of live our life, But I think that there is a desire for connection to community and to the greater experience of reality. So I'm not trying to put down people who are doing that. I think that our colonial culture globally, doesn't matter color, doesn't matter country, the colonialism that embraces this entire globe right now is definitely harming humans and harming the planet for sure.
Yeah. I think so too.
Yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question about, I just don't, yeah, I don't,
Yeah, that does definitely
I mean,
clear stuff up.
is it why are there more autistic children being born? People will say, oh, it's this, it's that, it's this, it's that. I mean, I put out a hypothetical idea that possibly the species is trying to bring in more food? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know that answer. I don't know if it's a symptom of something else that's going on with the food or with the technology. I don't know. Yeah, for everything I sort of have got some good solid footing on. There's like
Yep.
whole grains of a whole beach of sand that I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Mhm. But
Wow. There,
definitely
it's just so
curious.
expansive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's that's why like when I work with people, I'm like, you really, if you can, I mean, I'll focus in on what would be in your highest and best good and comfort zone to work on. But usually
Yep.
people have a major and a minor objective they want to work on. And I want them to be clear because I could open up to so many different frequencies of where I can collect or look at information that it becomes overwhelming for me. And I don't want to do that to myself or them.
Yeah.
Try to really keep it, narrowed in.
Contained.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So what are we thinking? You feeling like you have any more questions or do you want to pause?
I think it's just like a ton to think about. So
Okay, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I'm also happy to, I'll stop the recording and, we can
Yeah.
chat with something you had on your mind. And if you want to,
Yes, definitely.
if you have questions and you're thinking about it and you want to meet up again, I'm happy, and really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Because this
Yeah,
is
of
really nice
course.
to have an interview style for people who have read my books and want more information, or people who are interested,
Definitely.
want to understand my perspective on things. I also encourage anyone who wants to put any comments. I will try to answer them. But I do find that my readership is very quiet. No one would believe that my books sell at least 1 to 5 a day every day. But they do. And I'm always like, where are my readers? Are they ever going to connect with me? So, we'll see someday. But I'll stop the recording now. If that's okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
sounds good.
Everyone.